Good day, fellow clanmates. It is LJ the Warrior speaking from the tops of High Rock, and I welcome you all back to episode 3 of this Warrior Cats podcast. I would like to thank all of you guys for your feedbacks on episode 1 and 2, and I am very, very happy to bring you episode number 3. Of course, first episode, I talked mainly a lot about my personal experiences with the series and how I've grown to love it. And then in the last episode was featuring the greatest bro moment, where we mainly talked about how Warrior Cats could be adapted into film, which of course is going to happen hopefully within the 2020s decade. Again, the date on that movie is still so far up in the air. It's like I don't even have the slightest hint of when that could come out. But that is happening, and that's mainly what we talked about then. Make sure you go subscribe to The Greatest Bro Moment. I'm sure his playlist is somewhere in the playlist tab on the YouTube page, and he also has a website. If I can find a link for that, it will be in the description down below. Also, make sure you go check out my website, which I just created. Anyway, so let's get into episode number 3. So, I haven't really dove into a book yet and actually given you my thoughts and opinions on it. And this is what I'm going to do today. So I didn't really know which book to do. Leopard Star's Heart, which of course is the new super edition, which just came in recently. I thought about doing that one, but then I realized that you know what, just the time constraints, it's just, when I read books, I read them kind of slowly because I just want to have a deep analysis of all the characters, and I just want to have an understanding of what's going on. And that's what I've done with Blue Star's Prophecy. I've read this book many, many times. This was actually the Blue Star's Prophecy, which is the book I'm holding in my hand right now, was actually the first book I had ever owned. Like, it's the first Warrior Cats book that I had ever owned, like, personally. All the other times I checked out a book had either been from the school library or the local library, which I'm sure you guys remember if you heard episode 1. And as my knowledge for the series has expanded, and honestly, going back and reading this book for this episode of this podcast, it's not quite the way I remember it when I first read it. My opinions on some things in the series, and this book in particular, actually this book especially, have changed quite a bit. And I think this is just a good one here to start with when I talk about, I guess this is considered a book review, but not really. Because it really shows my contrast in the series of how I looked at it when I was first starting versus how I look at it now when I have just all this knowledge of other characters and other events, and I just know more about Blue Star herself as a character, and just other things like how the clans work and what's the normality now versus what the normality was back in the ancient days of ThunderClan, and just how my understanding of the series has changed. I think this is a good one just to show the contrast between me from like 5 years ago and me now. Also, just a slight trigger warning, I will probably be talking about death, grief, violence, as well as unplanned pregnancy. If this triggers you in any way, then just please refrain, because it will probably come up eventually throughout this episode. But anyway, so the first time I read Blue Star's Prophecy, I was about 12, 11 years old. I was in elementary school, and I loved it. I really loved it. It was an entertaining read. I remember sitting in my closet when I was a kid, because my grandma would always make me go to bed like 8 or 9 o'clock, and I would sit in my closet and turn the lights on in my closet so she couldn't see the light through my door, but I could still read that book. And, well, that's really how I read it. I have very fond memories, especially of being in, I think it was 6th grade, and I sat in the recliner next to the Christmas tree during Christmas break and just read this book. And, well, this book holds a very important place in my heart. Not only that, because it is a book that my father got me. I remember on Valentine's Day. I'm very grateful for this book. This book has definitely done a lot for me, and I do have a slight emotional attachment to this book as well. But I recently read it again. As I said earlier, I read it again, and it's just not quite as good as I remember it. Mainly because I've read a lot more. I've read probably 40 more books in the Warrior Cat series since I've read this one. Honestly, it's probably a lot more than that. And not so I've just read better books, and I've come to see what the normality and the quality of most of the Warriors books are, and I see how this one, somewhat kind of lacks in that. And where Blue Star's character has a lot of faults. I'm just bringing up a bunch of points, but I'm not actually going into why. So I think we just need to start from the very, very beginning here. in the first book, especially in the first couple chapters of Into the Wild, Bluestar is displayed as this very holy and very, very strong figure of a character. She has many, many months, even years at this point, of experience as the leader of ThunderClan. And, well, she has been known as kind of the greatest leader in the forest at the time. ThunderClan had been through many, many rough stages, and Bluestar had been the one on the helm, just really powering her way through all of this. And her trusty deputy Redtail had been right by her side the whole time she had been a leader, and well, it had worked very, very well. She'd worked very hard where she was, and she'd worked very. I kind of talked in the circle there. It didn't make much sense, but her effort was definitely there. You could see that she was really, really trying in her job, and she was doing a really good job of it. And really, in the first two books in particular, Bluestar is this really powerful source. Bluestar is a force of nature. She really kicks it in this book, and the second one as well, to where like Firestar really looks up to her, and she's literally his mentor at one point, but where she really looks up to, she's really looked up to by her clanmates just because of how strong she is and how wise she is. And she spreads her wisdom to all the clans and how she withstands her ground and does not give ShadowClan, ThunderClan's land while they're kind of on their power surge after they kicked out WindClan. And all this kind of goes downhill, where Bluestar really falls into a deep state of mental depression. Isn't depression just mental in general? Anyway, but yeah, she really falls into this state of, she really falls into this deep state, where she is just not motivated to do anything. She's just sitting in her den, just kind of staring at the wall the whole time, and then that lasts for a while, and then eventually she stays Fireheart, with the dog pack, where she dies drowning in the river. And it's a very good way to open the book. I think having the prologue and having Bluestar's death, as the prologue of this book, of course, because in A Dangerous Path we do get Bluestar's death, like in the books. Clearly it's how the book ends, but we get her death through her perspective, which I personally was a big fan of. I think it was cool that we got her death through her perspective, and how we saw Oakheart whispering in her ears as, she was trying to fight, and then she realized it's like, you'd done your job, you'd led your life, and you just need to pass it on. Let Firestar save the clans, because, well, you've done all you could. And I think that's a really good message, because sometimes you can't always be the hero. Sometimes you have to realize that you've done all you could, and it's just not enough. And you just need to let somebody else do it. Which, again, it's not the best, but I do think it's really good because it has a strong dose of reality to it. It's a great way to kick off the book, but now we kind of have problems with the book itself. Goosefeather is really crazy. Goosefeather puts a lot of... Goosefeather is Bluestar's uncle. Goosefeather, he's very crazy. He might be schizophrenic, honestly. It's never officially confirmed, but there's definitely something messed up in his head. But he's very crazy, and he puts a lot of pressure on Bluestar at a very young age when she was just a kid, explaining how fire alone can save the clan. Actually, no, excuse me, it's your fire, you will blaze through the forest. After a little sign there from lightning hitting a tree branch. But it's like, it's still kind of uncomfortable to watch, or like not really watch, but read, while Bluestar struggles underneath the weight of Goosefeather. And it's like, because he, especially after the fake, well, I don't know if it was fake or not, but the sign from WindClan, where on the mouse, where they literally pulled up to WindClan and attacked them in their camp. Which after that, you really should just not have trusted anything at all that Goosefeather was saying. But, he is a menacing cat, and so he probably had a pretty strong connection to StarClan. But still, Bluestar, so now I think that Blue Star, if Blue Star was a human, she would most definitely be diagnosed with bipolar depression, mainly because like she, I don't want I don't want to stereotype here, but she is like a teenage girl throughout this whole book, like pretty much the whole majority of it. She really is just some drama queen teenage girl, and it's entertaining to read at some points, and then some points it just gets really, really annoying. Of course, I talked earlier about when ThunderClan pulled up to WindClan's camp and attacked them because of the fake, or just the sign that Goosefeather gave ThunderClan. And well, in that battle, her mother Moonflower dies. She gets killed by the medicine cat at the time, and Blue Paw at the time, because she'd just become an apprentice like 2 days before, and she had been there. She'd been there to witness it, and she saw it happen right in front of her eyes. And obviously, that's very, very traumatic. But then it becomes to a point where she's literally just moping around, not doing anything. And it's like her sister Snowfur, she's moved on well, by that point, but but Blue Star has not. And it just kind of gets mopey to read. Like, it just kind of gets annoying to hear her just lash out at everybody, and just lash out. She's just lashing out at everyone. She's not really doing anything. And of course, we see her mental thoughts. We see like her thoughts and everything. And it is just kind of, well, it gets kind of annoying after a while, because she kind of just says the same thing over and over again, that she just kind of hates the world and that she misses her mom, which, I mean, hell, I miss my mom too. But like, still, like, it just kind of gets kind of agitating to read. And eventually, finally, Sunfall is just like, "Hey, yo, we gotta stop this. We gotta stop this now. Come on. You gotta get it going." And after he has a good interaction with her, she finally starts to turn it around. But then, unfortunately, she becomes a warrior. And even then, so still just little happenstances, just little so minute things where Blue Fur and Blue Paw, because she eventually does become a warrior, and she gets a warrior named Blue Fur, where she just overreacts. Rather, if something is like, if there was a moment there where I believe it was Thistleclaw was just talking to Adderfang, and she was acting like, well, of course, Thistleclaw, I guess he's portrayed as the main protagonist, but Thistleclaw is a whole nother discussion, which I probably can't talk about some in this review, but or this podcast episode. But yeah, he's just talking to Adderfang because they had recently gotten attacked by RiverClan, and they're talking about, maybe strengthening up the borders on Sunning Rocks and like the RiverClan border with them, which makes sense because they literally just attacked, and it's like, oh, if they did it once, who to think they aren't going to do it again. And then Blue Fur, she really portrays this as Thistleclaw being this very aggressive, like brutish, like evil tomcat, when in reality he's just having a conversation with a senior warrior who I believe at the time was acting as deputy, saying it's like, okay, we definitely need to strengthen up the defense there on that side. Because they tried to exploit us, and who's to say they won't do it again? And then again, she just overreacts and thinks that it's some huge thing. So then we get a whole like 2 pages just dedicated to how Blue Fur thinks that Thistleclaw is going to be just the most evil cat ever, and how he's just going to rampage and destroy the clans, which doesn't happen at all. And then, even in the opposite way, this book is portrayed as this book kind of portrays something like as an overreaction from Blue Star. Like, it really portrays this extreme overreaction and like a good and like a happy way, where they're literally just out hunting, and well, he later becomes Lionheart. I think you remember me and the Greatest Bro Moment talking about Lionheart at the end of episode 2. But really, Lionheart catches a squirrel. He catches a squirrel in a tree, which is impressive. Like, the book made it clear that it was a decent move that Lionheart put on. But Blue Star, like, of course she was Blue Fur at the time. She like extremely like overreacts, and she's like, "Oh my god, that was just the greatest catch ever," when in reality it's not. And other cats are looking at her like, excuse me, that wasn't the coolest. I mean, it was a cool catch, but like it wasn't that good. And I think that just really portrays Blue Star's bipolarity, which we see throughout the whole book. Now, and again, this goes on. Her sister gets pregnant with Thistleclaw, which, again, she really reacts about. She thinks it's going to be something terrible. Then we kind of get the same rinse and repeat with an earlier scene in the book where they're chasing ShadowClan cats across back to the border because they crossed, and she and Snowfur are chasing them back, and Snowfur gets hit by a car and dies, right? Okay, so she's lost her mother and her sister. It's really, really tragic. Her sister had just had her one son, White Kid at the time, who later becomes White Storm. She had just had her son, and now that son is just all alone because he just lost his mother. Blue Fur just lost her sister. It's really tragic. But then again, we kind of already saw that, but we see it again. And I think this was really just played out for filler. I think this, honestly, a lot of this part to me was just played out for filler because Blue Fur's grievances, they just go way too far. Like, they go on for way, way too long. We have multiple times, we have 3, even 4 chapters, not even joking, and these chapters are rather lengthy in this book, just dedicated to just Blue Star just really just moping around and just snapping at everyone. Well, because, I mean, she's sad. She's, kind of just broken after losing her mother and then her sister. But it's we see the same thing twice. And both times, they're just as long as the other one. And it's really just... And it kind of gets on my nerves. And it also drives my point farther of Blue Star having bipolar depression because the fact that she was held on to it for so long and she let this affect her for so long. And it just kind of adds a little, just staples the 2 pages together. Now, Blue Star, again, another reason why Blue Star just kind of reminds me of just this annoying little teenage girl. Well, not really little teenage girl, but just kind of this just annoying, overdramatic teenager. She fools around with Oakhart, has a one-night stand with him, and gets pregnant. Which, oh god. Yeah, that wasn't, which, of course, since Oakhart, very strong, very noble force in RiverClan, which cross-clan relationships were forbidden, and they still are, at least for now. Cross-clan relationships are, and how they might be removed soon, are a story for a different day, which actually I've been thinking about making that episode for. But, still, you can see the impulse in her decisions. You can see where she's just not thinking in certain ways, especially because she knows that she has a destiny. She was picked out long, long ago by the Star Clan, by the ancestors, that she has a special destiny where she is to lead ThunderClan through very, very tough times. Fire like fire, you will blaze through the forest. And this is portrayed very well, that she does know about this, and she is aware of this throughout most of the book after she hears this prophecy from Goosefeather. But even with this prophecy, and even having discussions with Goosefeather about this, even though really she shouldn't have listened to him in the first place, she still makes dumb decisions like this off of impulse, just because pretty much Oakhart simps, and he is so down bad for her that he waits months at a time just to get one interaction with Blue Star. It gets bad, because there was a time where at the gathering they talked to each other, and seriously, I think 2 whole seasons had passed, 2 whole seasons. So spring, and then summer, fall comes by, and then it's winter, And then, like, finally, like, he talks like, oh, I've been waiting to talk to you for so long. And, oh, God. It was just ridiculous, I guess. There was probably just a hole, I guess you could say a hole in her heart, even though it's very corny. Just because she had a lot of mental insecurity. She felt very, very alone. And I guess Oakhart was going to fill a void because, well, she was craving for attention, which, I mean, yeah, she was craving attention pretty much. Yeah, she was just I think honestly, she just craved for attention. Because, well, she hadn't really gotten any for a while, especially when Adderfang, of course, was serving as deputy, and she was just kind of laying low, just kind of doing her job. She trained up Whitestorm and Frostfur, and then she really had a time period of a couple like months where she just hung low and didn't really do anything. Really, she was just kind of there in the background. And again, this is, I think, where her bipolar depression really shows, because we see how pretty much sad she is that she's not a part of like a big piece of anything. Like, she's not like hugely involved with what's going on, really, because what's going on doesn't like involve her at all, unless like which we see she forcibly tries to get herself involved in it. And I think it just shows that what she was lacking emotionally after losing her mother and then later her sister while she was still pretty young. And, well, again, it just shows it really well. And this decision leads to a lot of impulse, because she had a lot of impulsive decisions due to what I think her bipolar depression is, and how she was really just trying to just get somebody's attention. And she noticed, hey, Oakhart's here across the border. He's been simping for me for a long time, man. Let's just give him a chance, even though I know it's wrong because I have a huge destiny. But I'm just going to give him a chance. And it falls flat, and she gets pregnant. Which, at that time, Tawny Spots, who was the deputy after Pine Star left to become a kitty pet, Sunfall, who I mentioned earlier, is now leader of ThunderClan because they have a hierarchy, and he named Tawny Spots as his deputy. Tawny Spots gets very, very ill, and Adderfang is acting in place as deputy, but still Tawny Spots was technically considered the official one, even though Tawny Spots had been very, very ill. And it was pretty clear that there were some pretty obvious choices like Thistleclaw. Adderfang was getting up there in age as well, so maybe he was a bit in the air about if he was going to become it or not. Which so a lot of hands were pointing towards Thistleclaw because he had a very strong reputation within his own clan. He had a very strong reputation as a very elite warrior, especially when it came to fighting, very fierce and very, very strong. And he had a good reputation, and a lot of cats thought that, hey, Thistleclaw, he's really strong. He's a pretty good choice to become deputy. So, if Sunstar dies before Thistleclaw does, which most likely will happen due to just obvious age gaps, he'd be a very strong deputy for ThunderClan. Blue Star, not only does Blue Fur not think this, but Goosefeather also doesn't think this. So they need to realize they need to do something where Blue Fur can become deputy. And then the whole couple months period of just her laying low happens, and she loses sight of this. Like, she values her personal feelings and getting attention over what is right, and which of course leads to the impulse of getting pregnant. Which she of course gets pregnant, realizes a huge thing. Luckily, Thrushpelt is there. Thrushpelt, poor soul Thrushpelt is, and he loved Blue Fur so much, and she just never gave him anything at all, and then goes and sleeps with the River Clan. I feel so bad oh my gosh, poor Thrushpelt. But so she ends up dumping off her kids at River Clan after she gives birth to them because she wants to become deputy. Rather impulsive decision, and well, it really leads to, well, her becoming leader. And after talking about all of this, I give this book, After reading this book, I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this one. It was just, I had a lot of issues with Blue Stars, with her attitude, not her attitude, because that just makes me sound like I'm some weird parent, but like, I really did not like when we dove into her mental side. I found it kind of annoying to read at times. I thought it was kind of, just I'm trying to find a good word for it, but just kind of monotonous when she would snap at everyone, and it would just go on for like 30-40 page sets of just her just moping around. And I thought that added a lot of unnecessary filler to the book, but there were still some very good moments. And a lot of the character deaths in the scene were very good. I really liked the mental struggle that Bluefur goes through when she decides that she needs to dump her kids off at RiverClan or get rid of them so she can become deputy of ThunderClan. I really liked reading her mental side of it. But overall, I think there's a lot of good in this book, and there's also a lot of bad. And I think there's just enough bad and just enough good to where they kind of even each other out. And that's why I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this one. Anyway, I kind of did an Anthony Fantano thing there at the end, but that was kind of funny. But that is going to end episode 3. Episode 4, I have a couple ideas. If you have an idea that you want from me in particular, contact me on some of my socials, Snapchat at LAJ996, as well as my email. Actually, no, I'm not going to give out my emails. Screw that. Or maybe leave a community post on my website, or hit me up on Instagram, Lucas_J31. Anyway, that'll pretty much wrap up episode 3. I'll see you in episode 4. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a wonderful day, and as always, may StarClan light your path.